Hi, hello everyone. 大家下午好. So I'll be speaking in English. All right. So let's continue. So it's kind of hard to stand here with the lights on like this. But anyway, um, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about macroeconomic trends first, and then we'll talk about creating supply chain resilience, and it will draw together some of the themes that we've talked about for the last half a day, and probably for the next within these 2 days as well. And the idea is that resilience is both about the physical resilience, which we have been hearing about, as well as about technology, which we've been hearing about as well, and will continue to hear about in the next half day and tomorrow. Okay, so this is something that we all know already, right? And this is basically what happened after COVID. And after COVID, what we saw was that there is a lot of, emphasis on supply chain resilience. So in the past, we talk about just in time and being able to, keep inventory low and being able, to be low inventory and be on time in the delivery. But since then, because of COVID and then now because of other disruptions, we have moved towards a just-in-case mentality. And this is really about the business continuity planning, about the business continuity management, and we've also heard about this. Okay, unfortunately, even after the COVID disruptions, uh, these trends continue, right? And we continue to face this type of disruptions. I'm having. Okay. So the world hasn't gone back to business as usual. As you all see, basically we have continued to face all these disruptions, okay, whether it is, with, oil prices, with what you see with the Red Sea, etc. Okay, so as a result, we have to continue thinking about creating resilience and creating supply chain continuity, supply chain contingency planning. Okay, so freight rates are rising again. Okay, so this is the first chart shows the first year, all right, and you can see that the freight rates in 1 year has gone up about 4 times, 4 to 5 times compared to what it was a year ago. Of course, if you look at the 10-year freight rates, right, over a longer period of time, and that high mountain that you see was the COVID peak. Okay, so since then we have not actually gone back to those levels, and hopefully not. But compared to the recovery that we're seeing last year, certainly the freight rates have gone up again, and that has led to more inflationary factors as well as delays in shipment. Right, so this is the result of the delays in shipment that we are seeing as a result of the longer type of longer routes that the shipping lines have to sail in order to carry the cargo. All right, and of course, we hear about sustainability and ESG regulations as well. So these are the trends that companies have to deal with because it's required. It's something required by governments as new regulations come on board. Okay, so for example, we have things like, for example, carbon tax adjustment mechanisms. All right, and some of these have already been put in place in the European Union, for example. So companies that export to these regions will have to take into account, the carbon and climate compliance type environmental regulations and comply to these regulations as well. And that will also cause changes in the supply chain. Okay, and of course, COVID has accelerated for need for digitalization. So everybody knows, during this period, a lot of new use of technology happened, and you can see that from this McKinsey survey, all right, which divided companies into 4 buckets, okay, 4 categories. The companies that were most that had the most implementation of technology, okay, so you can see that there's a peak, right, of 96, percent. The companies that had the most implementation of Industry 4.0 and digitalization technology were best able to cope with the with the COVID disruptions. Okay, whereas the companies that had no implementation of digital technology and Industry 4.0, they were only 20%, 19% over here, right? So about 20% of them, only about 20% of them were able to cope with the COVID disruption. So suddenly the use of technology, okay, actually helps companies to be able to deal with such disruptions. And this survey was actually done by McKinsey in 2021. Okay, so what do we do, right, in order to create supply chain resilience? So this is just an overview of, I think it's done manually and not by my control. So when I press, then they move for me, right? Thanks. Okay, so when you look at this supply chain, right, and and of course everybody knows what the supply chain looks like, but I show this picture is to show that within this whole supply chain, as we all know, there's multiple areas where things can fail, and obviously in order to be able to create resilience across the supply chain, we need to be able to take care of these areas, and that's where the fiscal resilience come in. That's where the business continuity comes in, and that's also where the technology comes in, right, in terms of how we use the IoT for tracking, for traceability, as well as potential users of AI in terms of being able to analyze what is happening across the end-to-end supply chain. Right. So when you look at supply chain resilience, right? So as I mentioned, we have all these trends, on this blue box, right? The macroeconomic disruptions that we are still seeing today. We have new regulatory trends, and then of course we have technology disruptions as well. All right, and all these are forcing us to think about business and supply chain resilience. And on the other hand, in order to think about resilience, we need to think about two portions, right? One is the fiscal resilience, which is, where are we sourcing from? Are suppliers ready? Okay, so that's the fiscal part of the supply chain resilience. On the other hand, we also have to think about the technology, right? And for technology, I think about it as, on the base, we need to have supply chain integration. We need to be able to share information across the supply chain, and we need to have visibility. Okay, so we need to integrate all these companies across the supply chain so that we are able to have visibility and to know what's happening. And knowing what's happening allows companies to react, okay, to respond to what is happening when a disruption happens. And as a result of this, then we can have both the efficiency and productivity because of the resilience and the technology implementation. Okay, and then of course potentially we have new business models as well. Okay, so in a way it is all integrated, right? It's all related. So the fiscal resilience and the technology has to come together in order for us to be able to achieve our supply chain resilience. Okay, so let me share some examples, right, around the fiscal resilience. So one of it, of course, is that, this is a survey from PwC, and this was carried out in 2020, okay, soon after COVID happened. And very interestingly, right, this was a survey of chief financial officers, CFOs in multinationals. And in terms of the question I asked them, what are your top 3 priorities in your sourcing and procurement? And if you look at the top 3 priorities in their sourcing and procurement, 51% says develop additional alternative sourcing options. Okay, 45%, okay, second number, 45% is understand financial and operation health of suppliers. And the third is change contractual terms. Okay, so you can see that it's not about cost cutting anymore, right? But it's about diversification and being able to achieve resilience financially as well. So sourcing paradigms have changed, and this is part of the fiscal resilience I talk about, right? In terms of how companies diversify their operations. Okay, and if you look at IoT adoption, right? So on the technology side, IoT adoption has also grown exponentially. Okay, so in this chart, the dark blue line is basically the number of non-IoT devices. So number of non-IoT devices are growing, but very slowly. but number of IoT devices are growing and very rapidly. So I like this chart because it shows the scale of which IoT is growing. So when we see charts of IoT market growth, there's always a huge jump in IoT, right? We can always see a lot of these projections show growth. But this shows us in comparison that the number of devices, right? The growth in the number of devices are enabled. IoT, that means internet-enabled devices. And what are these used for? These are used for tracking, these are used for sensors, these are used for detecting information. And this is because we need real-time information, right? We need interconnectedness, we need real-time information, we need to get information on the ground. And only with this information on the ground, then we are able to assess what's happening, we are able to react to what's happening. Of course, the risk of having so much interconnection as well is that potentially we create cybersecurity risk, because now when everything is interconnected, then potentially there is also a risk that we can be hacked. And obviously there are situations, and more such issues like this coming up, right? And these are two recent articles that talk about how companies need to think about their cybersecurity risk as well in a supply chain that is more and more integrated. Okay, and part of the solution, not the only solution, but part of the solution, right? So we talk about IoT as a solution for tracing and for visibility of the supply chain. So of course, at the base, we need to integrate our IT systems, but we need to gather information real time from sensors and from IoT devices in order to pick up information real time from the supply chain. Then we talk about cybersecurity as a result of this integration of supply chain and sharing of information. Then how do we protect information? So blockchain has been talked about as one of the ways in which we can try to ensure that information is not tampered with, that we can track information at the source, that we can make sure that information is correct at the source and along the supply chain, okay, and not changed along the way. Okay, so this is one applications of blockchain, very much in sort of fraud prevention and tampering of information. And this is example that is applied to food traceability, but certainly also applied to invoices, for example, with collateral management for warehouse goods receipt, okay, that they use to borrow money from the banks. So applications like these that require authentication of the information, and using blockchain is one of the ways that companies actually try to make sure that the information is accurate, okay, and not tampered with. All right, and then of course then we talk about having all this integration, right? Then are we able to speed up our fraud detection using AI? Okay, so I picked up a couple of examples, right? And I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot, you'll be hearing more about these along the way as well. I think in the next presentation, you'll hear more about this as well. Okay, so can AI put a stop to checking or verification of counterfeit products? Of course, there's no substitute for being on the ground, right? But when we have a lot of information being shared, a lot of information out there, and a lot of products moving in and out, can we actually use AI to speed up the process in which we do checking? Okay, and in many cases, yes, you can, right? So a couple of examples like this, right? And I'll show you a video of this. Can we analyze enough images? Can we analyze enough data so that we can use AI to help us detect? Okay, it's just like X-ray machines, checking our images, right, in a doctor's clinic, and checking images so that it can suggest for the doctors whether someone someone is sick or someone has a disease, okay, and then and flag out potential problems. So by using machine, potentially we are able to flag out all these issues more easily, okay, because there's so much information flowing through, there's so much products flowing through that is physically difficult for a human or for a whole, for many human beings to do all the work. And therefore, using machines to do this work of checking images, of checking data, of picking up irregularities in the data will then help, okay, to speed up our fraud detection. Okay, so there's no magic about it. It's basically training the machines, right, based on the data that we have, okay, so that they are better able to pick up potential fraud cases. Okay, so let's see this video.
Watch out for fake clothes, fake jewelry, fake watches.
Yeah, there's a lot of fakes out there. New federal data shows that those are the 3 counterfeit products customs agents seized most this year at America's ports, with a street value of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, CBS News consumer correspondent Usher Qureshi, he found out how artificial intelligence is helping find some of those fakes before you buy them.
So what this is a lens attachment that goes onto the camera of, say, an iPhone or an iPod, and it ends up giving an iPod super microscopic capabilities.
We got to look at some technology that might be protecting you from dangerous fakes this year.
I didn't realize that 100% of all the fake handbags that we sampled, they all had lead and cadmium paint on them.
So he developed a device that takes highly magnified images of a product, like a luxury purse, and stores them in the cloud so sellers can spot counterfeit products in real time.
So we built a whole massive data set of authentic products and counterfeit products. We taught computers how to detect those minute differences, roughly about between 2,000 and 4,000 different characteristics on every single image.
Retailers including TikTok Shop and Goodwill now use this tech to spot fake luxury handbags, accessories, and sneakers, and provide a certificate of authenticity for the buyer and the seller.
Then they don't have to take big risks. They know immediately.
It's on-demand counterfeit detection.
That's it. Ultimately, can we solve the problem? No. But can we try our damnedest? Absolutely yes.
It's pretty cool, but it's not just fake luxury items you need to watch out for. In our special report, we'll show you counterfeit products you'd never expect. And we'll take you on a journey from America's busiest mailroom to the headquarters of Amazon to see the behind-the-scenes battle to find the fakes before they land at your doorstep.
Which leads to the question, how big of a problem is this?
Betty, it's huge, an estimated $2 trillion industry. And a recent study from Michigan State University found 1 in 7 of us was deceived into buying a counterfeit product in the last year. This past summer, a man in Miami pleaded guilty to selling counterfeit Cisco computer equipment online to buyers around the country, including schools and the military. In all, investigators say he cheated buyers out of more than $100 million.
I certainly can believe that. All right.
Yes, the military can be duped. What does that say about us? Okay, thank you. Great report.
Okay.
And you can catch Usher's full report on finding fakes tonight on CBS News Miami at 7. You can watch it right here on our CBS Miami app, Pluto TV, and your favorite streaming platform.
Okay, so I think you can get the idea, right? And in this case, it's just a very simple app, okay, where you can actually scan the image. But behind it, of course, the machine is being trained on, thousands or millions of images of fake products, right? So they can speed up this process of finding potential fakes, okay? And the whole idea is that, this supplements, in a way, the human skill, right? That we have to do manually previously in the past, but now by speeding it up, whether it's finding it online on the websites or finding it, on the ground by scanning the picture using our phone, that actually allows us to, for the humans to actually speed up the way that they can potentially catch some of these problems. Okay, so there are other videos like this, right, where they track the pharmaceuticals as well, and they use it to detect packaging, whether it's the right packaging of pharmaceuticals or other products, or using it to detect whether this is the right chemical composition or whether that chemical composition of the pharmaceutical drug has been tampered with. Okay, so different ways in which you can use technology now, right, with underlying AI, but with some scanning technology to actually verify the authenticity of the product itself. All right.
Okay, as you shop
Okay,
for
I think we
holidays
can go on to the
this
next one. Okay, so with that, I'm done.